Joyce. Yeah, I guess I'm here today because I do quite a bit in the, you might say, e-skills and digital leadership spaces. And as a result of that, I ended up writing this book called the E-Skills Manifesto, a call to arms for the European Commission. And it had input from government, industry, and the academic world. And essentially, the aim here was to not so much be focused on e-skills despite the title, but to, if you like, move Europe to being a center of innovation, or looking at it from another perspective, to avoid Europe from becoming an economic backwater. So that was the thrust behind it. So what I'm going to do today is sort of set the scene in terms of where we are from my perspective, and the views expressed today are my views, though they are sprinkled with views from the book, and then make some recommendations for government, academe, and industry in terms of how we could take things forward. This is not a problem in the sense that people aren't aware of it. It's just that there's an inertia in terms of action to be taken. And if we're not careful, we could find ourselves in a situation where this economic harshness we're facing is in fact the new normal forever, so to speak. Looking at a couple of terms here, e-skills and innovation. There's a big misunderstanding about e-skills. When people hear e-skills, they tend to think about PC support people, database administrators, CIOs, etc. Essentially, e-skills is about everybody. In a digital economy, we all need to have e-skills. According to analyst firm IDC, in 5 years' time, only 1 job in 5 across Europe will not require IT skills or e-skills. So the writing's on the wall. But the majority of people out there that are making, if you like, hiring decisions are essentially regarding e-skills as some sort of something to do with the IT department. That's a big problem we face. Now, innovation has been a dirty word during the recession because a lot of the purse string holders have considered innovation to be the same as invention. Innovation is not invention. Innovation is doing the things that you've always done better. The purse string holders have typically regarded innovation as high risk and therefore costly. And so any discussions around innovation have caused, if you like, purse string holders to, you might say, assume the curled hedgehog position, so to speak. Now, things have got so bad that people are now looking at innovation again, but looking at it in terms of how can we innovate to drive out more costs and so on. And that's absolutely fine. And one should always innovate to drive out costs in good markets and bad markets, in the same way as you should look to innovate for competitive advantage in good markets and bad markets. But I know for a fact that innovation is now a theme for the European Commission, so we will certainly have it woven into our conversation, woven into our proposals, but whether people really understand what it is or not, we'll have to see. So, we in the West in particular, we've gorged ourselves. And we've hoped that steady economic growth would help us avoid financial indigestion. And that's not what's happened. There's a strong feeling that where we are at this point in time is the last days of the Roman Empire. We've got ourselves so fat and comfortable, and we've lost our hunger. But other nations around the world have not got quite the same mindset, and they are planning for the future as we sit here unable to move because of the inertia and laziness, because we've become so accustomed, if you like, to a certain style of living and the assumption that material things will come to us and so on. Now, of course, I'm making big, gross generalizations here, but broadly speaking, I think this is where we are. We've got a situation here where the power axis is tilting. We in the West are to some extent in denial about where we stand in terms of the world stage. 4 out of the 5 top-performing economies, probably in the next 20 years, will be the BRIC economies. And then after that are the next 11, and these include countries like Bangladesh, Mexico, Turkey, Vietnam, South Korea, who will be looking to eat our lunch and certainly diluting our value proposition. So basically, the power is moving away from Europe, and we can either watch it go and be in denial, or we can capitalize on that, or we can do something about it. Our education system is in need of an overhaul. What we're doing today is we are churning out people that will become part of automated cogs in what are high-tech factories. We're sitting there in front of a PC thinking, we're safe, I'm glad I'm not a miner, I'm glad I'm not a farmer, I'm a knowledge worker. No, you're an extension to a business process. And when the technology gets to a point, you'll be automated as well. That's the reality of it. To survive in a knowledge-based economy, you have got to be a disruptive thinker. Think Salvador Dali. Think Naomi Campbell. These difficult-to-manage, non-compliant people. Culturally, I would say, and we were speaking about this over lunch, I think Ireland lends itself to this profile of person. So that's an asset that perhaps you can capitalize on rather than beat out of people during the schooling process, so to speak. So we have a situation here now where Europe is racing to build high-tech factories, in effect. Semi-automated sausage machines with compliant workers controlling them. And that's fine if you're in the battle to be the cheapest, but that's not where the innovation lies. There is a major fault line that sits between the user community and the IT community. Many people, when they talk about IT service in their organization, they'll make jokes about how the help desk person says, turn it off, turn it back on again, it should work. And from a branding perspective, the IT industry has a very poor reputation across the planet. That joke, so to speak, is recognized in most countries around the world. You've got the users, you've got the IT people, they talk about a service, but there's a war going on out there between these two communities, these two tribes. And that's a serious problem. It's a problem, I think, that both parties have responsibility in, but the IT industry as a whole, you might say, displays somewhat autistic characteristics. You know, high IQ, don't argue with me as an IT person, I'll logic you to death. But if you're an idiot, I'll tell you an idiot, because that's the truth. It's not socially skilled, or it may not be a smart thing to say, given that you're controlling my salary, but that's how an IT person would typically speak. Now, you may say, how dare you say that? I'm an ex-real-time software developer, so you might say I'm one of those people that's learned to say hello at the start of conversations. So that's where we are. As an industry, we have got some work to do on our personal branding, our emotional intelligence, if you like, before we'll get taken seriously on the other side of the fence. And whilst the IT industry has a bad brand, then e-skills will have a bad brand. And if e-skills has a bad brand, you can forget innovation. So we need to address this very rapidly. At a senior level, a lot of organizations are great users of IT, but why haven't they got a CIO in the boardroom? Why is there no digital leadership representation in the boardroom? I would regard this as a governance issue. You as an organization, you have got a lot of assets, a lot of technology assets. You've got a lot of confidential information about your customers and so on. There doesn't appear to be anyone in the boardroom taking genuine responsibility for this. It's been perhaps dumped on the CFO or the COO because they're good at managing costs, so to speak. So I think this will become an acute issue over time, a kind of a corporate malgovernance to a large extent. But the bottom line here is that most CIOs are not CIOs, they're IT managers. CIO stands for Chief IT Manager Officer. They're managing technology as opposed to managing information. They're focused on the supply and not the demand. So that's another issue. But the bottom line here is we've got a major problem in terms of how the IT industry engages with the user community. Now, we're all aware of new technology, but many governments and business leaders are focusing on using new technologies to solve old problems. So, for example, in the UK, we are spending billions on a new high-speed rail link across the country. Now, that would be good for a 20th century economy, but in a 21st century economy where we have broadband and video conferencing capability, why do we need to spend hours in stations? Why do we need to consume energy unnecessarily when you have a 21st century infrastructure? That money would be better spent on broadbanding the rural regions, for example, so that everybody can be involved, and also those on the wrong side of the digital divide. Now, when the Celtic tiger wakes up from its coma, you will no doubt be under pressure to refresh your rail infrastructure. I would encourage you to be extremely cautious about that, because again, for me, that's 20th century infrastructure, and if we're going to play in a 21st century arena, we need to have 21st century infrastructure. So we have a situation here, effectively, where the workers, so to speak, are being skilled up in a sort of 20th century mindset, and the leadership, whilst they may understand technology to some extent, are taking us off in the wrong direction in terms of how to apply it to get competitive advantage. Now, I may be being a little harsh here, but I do want to set the scene in terms of, where we are to a large extent. If we're going to have these automated, semi-automated factories, these sausage machines, high-tech factories, whatever we like to call them, then we're in a race to be the cheapest. And in the race to be the cheapest, there is only one winner. And that winner is a very low margin winner. So we can't really afford to be in that battle. We're going to have to use innovation to get ourselves out of that downward value cycle, so to speak. So if we're not careful, we're going to, by default, end up trying to become the cheapest on the planet as opposed to the most high value on the planet. Remember, there's 3 billion emerging middle-class people looking for services. So what can you offer them that they can't deliver themselves, or they can deliver them themselves, but you can deliver it more cheaply? So all of a sudden, in years gone by, we would laugh in the UK about something being made in Hong Kong as something that's cheap. Well, in Hong Kong, they'll be laughing about things made in the UK because they'll be sending their low-value stuff to us because when their GDP passes ours, that's how it will be. So, wish you were here. Now, another aspect of a digital future is having a digital infrastructure. For sure, when you're in Dublin, you can tweet to your heart's content about what a lovely time you're having here. But what about when you go up to County Donegal, to St. Patrick's Purgatory on Lough Derg, and you want to video log the challenging times you're facing on the island? Chances are you're not going to be able to do that. Tourists are going to make decisions about where they go on holiday, and organizations are going to make decisions about where they set up their business based on the infrastructure that is available in that particular country. Now, I painted a very harsh picture here, and there is a lot of good being done out there. A lot of the technology companies are doing great things. What comes to mind? Collaboration, e-health, e-education to some extent. So there is good stuff going on out there. And what we do have to be careful of is that those companies will take their business, will take their offices elsewhere if we can't provide them with the talent to help those organizations thrive or even simply survive. So if we want the Googles, the Microsofts, the Ciscos, etc., to remain on site, so to speak, we better have the people for them. So Having set that scene, I'm now going to make some recommendations, and I've broken down the recommendations into e-skills, management, sustainability, and collaboration, and also what I would call paradigm shifts. Many of these you may have heard before. Well, we'll see. We'll see. So from a skills perspective, we need to launch awareness campaigns. We need to make the citizens aware that we have an issue, and we need to make young people aware of the path they need to take to be economically relevant in a 21st century information economy. So again, branding and PR are very, very key here. We need high-speed internet, particularly in the schools, so that the children can capitalize on the wealth of information that's out there, but also to collaborate and engage with people, other people across the planet. The more we know people from around the world, the less likely we are to go to war with them, so to speak. So the more we can communicate, the better. Reskill teachers, these people are linchpins in an economic, in an information society. So we need to make sure that they're up to speed. It's not good when the kids can tell the teachers what can be done and so on. We need to kind of get the teachers back in the driving seat. Shake up tertiary education. The concept of, in year 1, create a degree, in year 2, 3, and 4, people learn that subject, and in year 5, they apply what was defined 5 years ago. That's like learning skills for one geological era to be applied to the next. That model of block learning is past its sell-by date in many respects. Now that's going to be painful for the academics to give up that, if you like, that cash flow, or restructure it in a way that's more applicable and more real-time to the volatile world we live in. Embrace innovation. At the end of the day, e-skills is important, but it is all about innovation. We need e-skilled people, not to be e-skilled people, but to be innovative people. They are less likely to be innovative if they do not, if they cannot harness the power of new technologies. Now, I think you're doing a great job in terms of biting your lip and holding back any kind of issues you have, but we'll have plenty of opportunity for that afterwards. Embed IT into other subjects. IT, as I've highlighted, has a very bad press. So we're going to have to introduce it to the next generation by stealth. So make history lessons more high-tech, geography lessons more high-tech, and so on. And just as a side effect, people become e-skilled. Because the border between users and the IT department is becoming increasingly blurred. The technologies that the users are using are as sophisticated as the technologies that the programmers are using in the IT department. So who's in the IT department and who's not is going to become increasingly blurred. Yep, align academe with business and society. There needs to be closer conversations so that the academic world churns out, if you like, people that are going to benefit business and society. And yes, a complete review of the education chain is very, very important. So we're not talking about here, let's get our act together in terms of IT degrees, though they do need to be revisited, unless you're training people to become IT lecturers. We need to look at this from a schooling perspective, from a nursery perspective, because that's what they're doing in other countries. We cannot regard e-skills as some sort of competency bolt-on before you enter the world of work. It's got to be woven into the fabric of our society. Collaboration, yes, improve collaboration across the value chain, the nurseries through to the universities, through to the training departments of government and industry need to know where they sit in the value chain, and they need to cooperate with those in, adjoining links in the chain, so to speak. We do need to coordinate this. It's not a really, we can think of it as a war, it's Europe versus the rest, but the more coordinated we are across the planet, the better use we will make of the limited resources that we have. And the better we'll be able to, if you like, share our economic prosperity with those countries that are not quite there yet. Yes, and similarly to understand our own place in the global value chain. What is Ireland good at? What is Ireland bringing to the table? Because if Ireland's not bringing something to the table, it will be out of the supply chain. In one extreme, you might argue that one day we'll all be in the supply chain of Walmart or Amazon. So where do we sit in that chain? And if that's not crystal clear in your government's eyes, you will just kind of precess into oblivion. Make qualifications relevant. Qualifications are very, very important. Qualifications tell us that somebody has reached a certain level of competence or capability. But if the qualifications are too driven by industry, they become more of a marketing tool of industry rather than any real benefit to business and society. We need to get the balance right in terms of qualifications. There's lots and lots of qualifications out there in the IT industry, for example, but most of them, or very few of them, have actually any weight when it comes to the interview process, so to speak. Which is a problem, because if I have two CIOs in front of me, or two project managers is different because there are qualifications there, but two CIOs, for example, they could be very different in terms of their capabilities, and I wouldn't know unless I had to read their CV in detail. I want, like, chartered accountant, I want chartered CIO, and to know exactly what that means. Yeah, improved management of IT people. In the book, some of the research that was done showed that Europe is worse at managing its IT people than those in the East and those in the US. So we are going to have a quantity issue in terms of talent, but we're going to have an issue as well in terms of, do we sweat that talent appropriately? That's an issue we face. We need to improve the management in our IT functions. I'm generalizing a little bit, but a lot of managers in the IT function just happen to be the older of the people. They've been there the longest. They've been bumped up into a management position, but they've got no management training. They're simply the older techie in the group. Improved technologist engagement. For the first 6 months in my first job as an IT person, I didn't really know what I was doing in terms of what my little module of code I was writing, how it fitted into the big picture. So I was totally disengaged from the overall, if you like, business objectives of the organization. We've got to show the technologists how they are making a difference to, if you like, the vision of the organization. And we don't really make the effort to do that. We assign them little units of work to do, and they just don't see the relevance to it. And that's why they just move from company to company based on, you know, skills acquisition rather than any kind of love towards the employer. Demote the managerial ladder. I was an example of this. I thought, well, you're not going places until you've got people working for you. So everyone's desperate to clamber up the managerial ladder. And as a result, the only people that don't climb the ladder, you know, there's very few good technologists at the shop floor level, because as soon as they get in any way good, they're on to being a team leader, then a project manager, program director, whatever it is. We need to tell people, or we need to put systems or structures in place that allow people to have a technology or a technical career from, you know, across the whole of their career. Companies like IBM do that, but many organizations either have no career structure or, by implication, suggest that if you're not managing people, you're not going places. So we need to de-emphasize the managerial ladder, because as we will see over the next few years, lots and lots of middle managers will be put out onto the street as organizations are made leaner, and those middle managers that are sitting in the street thinking, well, actually, all I'm good at is management, will have to go back to school. And yes, encourage innovation. Innovation is generally not encouraged in organizations. I told you to do, not think, in effect. So we need to get rid of the leadership that have that perspective, and then to encourage the staff to genuinely harness the power of their brains. I used to develop real-time naval ship systems, and during the design phase of the project, we would come into work, and we would sit down. It was like walking into a church. You'd sit down very quietly, and you'd contemplate, and you'd reflect. You know, maybe even put your head on the on the desk. And nobody batted an eyelid, because design is a thinking phase in the development of IT systems, and we were allowed to think. In this day and age, if your boss comes past, you have to start tapping. Look, I'm definitely doing. And that mindset is killing innovation, and we need to change it. Green, harness IT for energy management. IT is often seen as the villain in the piece in respect of energy management, but IT is the savior when it comes to energy management. Smart grids, smart metering, smart appliances. IT can really help us to harness or maximize the limited resources that we have. The CIO, with their data centers, are in a strong position to take on the role of chief energy officer. They are largely using the most energy out there. Now, as an aside, and Dublin probably won't put this in the tourist brochure, but Dublin is an excellent place for data centers because of the cold, damp weather. So that's just an aside, but I'm not quite sure how you weave that into the branding. So servers or tourists. What I think we're looking at here is something as significant as the convergence of telecoms and IT. 25 years ago, nobody would have really thought too much about those two being one and the same thing. I think it's just a matter of time before the energy industry and the IT industry converge. And the more gracefully we can get that to converge, the better. It could save ourselves a lot of time, and it could save us a lot of resources. Paradigm shift. Learn, then work. We've got to cut that out. Lifelong learning. So we don't stop learning the day we start our first day at work. We've got to just keep learning. Sell rather than impose. So the last thing we want to do is to walk away from this room and say, right, you get e-skilled up, otherwise you're out of here. That will probably cause some sort of Luddite backlash. So we have to kind of sex it up a little bit. We, again, have to work on our branding to make it attractive to people to go down this road. Harness the full workforce. We're talking about women here. We're talking about the digitally excluded. We're talking about senior citizens. We're talking about disabled. We're talking about half the workforce of Europe. I train a lot of new graduates, new IT graduates, and I see the majority of them are men, and there's one or two ladies there as well. And sadly, the ladies are having to mimic the men's behavior and pretend that they're really interested in the intricacies of the technology, et cetera, and it just doesn't feel right. I do some work for eSkills in the UK, and they've got more innovative ways of bringing women into the industry, so to speak. And that's very, very important. The other key point here is that everybody doesn't learn exactly the same way as a middle-class white young male. So we need to kind of look at different learning styles if we're going to be effective here. And some of the worst damage is done by parents and career advisors. So Marie, forget the IT industry, that's for boys. There's a lot of that going on, and that's not good. So we need to work on these people because they are turning away a large potential workforce or large potential contributors to the workforce. That's the point I just made. Government to become beacons. Often government agencies are slow followers and perhaps don't always put out the biggest bucks to get the best people, so to speak. I think the beauty of the government becoming beacons in terms of the innovative use of IT, in terms of an e-skilled workforce, would pay itself many times over. Because the government can be seen as a little bit more independent than a given technology company, for example. And once they've set the standard, the role of working in the public sector is not to keep you off the streets, but to bring you through the system and pump you out into the wider world as an e-skilled individual. Standardize on skills definitions. I've talked about that before. What's a database administrator? We're not 100% clear on that. There is no ISO standard. And that's just the IT sector. But the lack of standards reduces mobility of the workforce across Europe. And whether we like it or not, we need to move the people where and when they're needed. And we can't do that unless we have some sort of skill definition harmonization across Europe. CIOs to move away from being the chief laptop fixer officer to being the chief information officer, to being the change information officer, to being the collaboration and innovation officer, to being the chief energy officer. We need that step to be taken. So for those of you who touch in any way on the IT industry, a lot of what CIOs are responsible for is going into the cloud, the so-called cloud. It's going onto the web. They won't have a job as such unless they reinvent themselves. Better to do that proactively than reactively. I think HR, CIO, and the CEO need to work as a team, bless you, to address this people issue, so to speak. Rarely, HR is another one that should be in the boardroom as well, but often HR is associated with, staffing issues of the day as opposed to genuine talent management. Dismantle the help desk demilitarized zone model. When I first started out, there was no such concept as help desk. People would come over and ask you if they had a problem. Today, we've got sandbags and help desks and trouble tickets. Keep your distance. We don't dare want to have a relationship with you. It is a war zone out there. Business analysts and systems analysts only exist because we need somebody to patrol the demilitarized zone, gather the requirements, run back, you build them, we'll go back and see if they're okay. That's got to come to an end. And I'm being harsh here because, of course, we have very good analyst programmers who do the full lot, but we still have this mindset of them and us. And better still, if we can get the IT department out of the basement and into another continent, all the better. I believe the IT department should be in the cloud, and the information department should be sprinkled across the user community. Incentivize lifelong learning. So tax credits. And for those that will not benefit from tax credits because they're so poor, give them hardware and software, or give them access to hardware and software so that they can become e-skilled as well. Because we're in danger here not of having mass unemployment, but mass unemployability. People who will never be able to work again because they haven't got the basic competencies in an innovation economy. Utilize role models. I don't know whether we can get George Clooney or Brad Pitt involved in it, though that would be mis-selling. But we do need to identify successful people who are e-skilled and parade them in front of the next generation to say, one day you can be like this. Though if you said, I want you to be e-skilled, they would probably think, no, I don't want to be a nerd. They would take a negative turn on that at this point in time in many cases. So what I've done here is I've given you a kind of a brain dump in terms of where I think the issues are, what I think the recommendations should be. And they're not just my recommendations, they're from other people as well. But we do need to get our act together now. We can't just ignore this. Your new government has got to become very, very focused on this from day one. Otherwise, we don't really know what Ireland's value proposition is. So thank you very much, Joyce. That's all I have to say on the subject. So if you have any questions, please fire away.